It's a good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele Ndebele and this is the Breakfast Club. Today in our show we'll be talking about the Convention on Children's Rights. Children's rights are very important in all aspects of our lives because everyone loves children, and it is important that we protect our children, also make sure that they are protected from abuse and many other things. So today I'll be talking to the Swedish Ambassador. I'll also be talking to officials from the Legal Resource Foundation as well as the National Art Gallery. They'll be talking about the exhibition that is going on Wednesday at the National Art Gallery, focusing on the 30th anniversary on the celebration of the Convention of Children's Rights. So we'll hear from them how the importance of the children's rights and what Zimbabwe has done in terms of making sure that they domesticate the Convention on the Children's Rights. But we'll also learn experiences from Sweden that has been actually a champion of children's rights. So I hope you're going to enjoy this program. Not only that, you're going to learn a lot, and on Wednesday you're going to find your way to the National Art Gallery where the exhibition is happening, and this exhibition will be happening at around 5 p.m. in the evening, and I'm told it will go on for the whole month. So if you don't get a chance to go to the official opening of this exhibition on Wednesday during the month of March, find time to go and see the work of children, the different paintings and exhibitions that are happening on the at the gallery about the children's rights.
I'm very excited to be in Bulawayo, and it's always very useful for us based in Harare to see more of Zimbabwe than just Harare. So I'm very, very excited to be here. My impressions so far are very positive.
Yes, we are talking about the Convention on Children's Rights, and why is this quite an important issue for Sweden as a country?
It has always been a very important issue for Sweden. We were one of the leading nations behind the conventions, and also one of the first countries that ratified the convention once it was adopted. So this has always been at the core of our democracy and democratic values.
So looking at the Swedish laws, I mean, do you allow, what has been the history of the children's rights? Is there any important event that happened for you to actually do these conventions? Or?
Well, I think ever since the convention has been adopted, there have been numerous examples in the years to follow. So for example, we have a well-developed paternity leave for all Swedish dads to also have equal rights as the mother to stay at home with the kids when they're very young. And it's also a child's perspective mainstreamed, not only in education and I would say explicitly by law, but also implicitly, like as a parent. I myself am a mother of 3, and this is something that I also teach my children, not then referring to necessarily to the convention, but we try in different ways to actually highlight a child's perspective and the right to speak and the right to have equal treatment.
Actually, I mean, you mentioned something interesting about the paternity leave. The few times that I've been in Sweden, I've seen men pushing trolleys in the parks, and they always say, "Wow, Swedish men are nice." I mean, is there a law which actually looks at the children's rights in Sweden? And do you find that quite helpful in bringing, because I'm looking at our society where people probably take paternity leave and go and drink. How have you managed to actually instill this culture that it is the role of the men as well to look after the children? I
mean, there are laws and there are regulations, and then there's a continuous debate, of course, on how much should the state regulate this type of parenting, for example, and equal rights to an equal time of paternity and maternity leave. But I think overall results have been very positive, and we're an example of very positive results when it comes to establishing good relations also between the child and its father, which is in our culture a very natural thing, I would say. We don't have very distinct roles in between the mother and father in the family.
But also what I've noticed, I mean, with my visits to Sweden is that if you look at weekends, it's almost like family time. Most shops and they're closed except for small grocery shops. Do you think that actually helps the family to just stay at home and focus on the family?
Yeah, maybe, perhaps that's an interesting reflection. And but I think overall, even when we go to work, we We make sure, you know, that our children are well taken care of during the day, that they've come to school or the daycare properly. And then we might leave work earlier some afternoons to go and pick up our children and spend time with them in the afternoons and in the evenings. Not only family time, but also in terms of activities and others. So the children have a large place in the role of the family.
So tell us about some of the work that the Swedish Embassy is doing in Zimbabwe.
Well, in Zimbabwe, we have quite a large development cooperation in Zimbabwe. It's focused on democracy and human rights, and this is where obviously the rights of the child would fall naturally under. But I would also say we mainstream it. So we also work in the health sector and also environmental climate change. And unfortunately, if we just take the example of health or climate change, the vulnerable groups, such as women and children, are very often the most affected. So then again, you would have that perspective of the child mainstreamed, I think, throughout our work.
So you've just recently come to Zimbabwe, and I mean, as the ambassador of Sweden, looking maybe in the next 3-4 years, what's your view or what's your plan for working with the Zimbabwean people?
I think there is, first I would like to say Zimbabwe is a beautiful country, beautiful people, and very, very friendly people. And so I look forward to deepen my relations with Zimbabwean people. And through development cooperation, but also other types of cooperation, strengthen our relations. I think we have a lot to learn from each other. Obviously, I think my government is a government that underlines democracy, human rights. It's also a government with a feminist foreign policy. So I think those would be my focus areas, but there's a lot to do within these areas. So
we on Wednesday, there will be an exhibition specifically looking at the Convention of Children's Rights. I mean, why is it, for Sweden, why is it important? Why did you decide to say we're going to partner in this important exhibition?
It was important to come to Bulawayo also. First of all, I'd like to say that was also very important to us, and not only keep it to Harare. It was important for us to show, not only because this is an exhibition with photographies, but also involve children, and for them to express themselves verbally, but also, and which they're actually currently doing that now, preparing artistically. So by painting themselves, highlighting what is a family, what is a right of a child, for example, what's my right to education or to have a say and have an opinion and so on. So I'm very excited to see what the children are going to come up to.
Now, you talk about the right of education, and we find that in economies like Zimbabwe, and mostly maybe in African countries, some people struggle, to take their children to school. I mean, do you have programs that actually support the education of children?
We are not active in the, so to speak, education sector at this point, but we try to support in other ways. And as I mentioned earlier, we are focused on one of the focus areas is democracy and human rights. And underneath those areas, you would also find us being active in empowering women and children in general to take part in the society. And yes, I believe that all that we do in trying to cooperate with Zimbabwe is actually a way of helping and strengthen the democracy.
There's been an outcry in Zimbabwe when the corporate law was, corporate punishment was outlawed, and people were coming up with things like, spade the rod, spoil the child, and I believe, corporate law punishment is abolished in Sweden. Has that affected the behavior of children, that they'll get naughty because they're not beaten up?
I wouldn't know, because it wasn't allowed even when I was born. So I haven't been raised in that kind of culture or tradition, so to speak. So I'm not the right person to ask you, to answer you that, sorry. But I would hope so. I would hope that there has come something good out of that. That is one of our understandings anyway, from a Swedish point of view.
What can, in your view, what do you think Zimbabwe can learn from these conventions, and how, Sweden has progressed in terms of children's rights?
I think what we have done, for example, is that it's not only at central level. We have also tried to work at local level, decentralized implementation. And as I was mentioning earlier, also the mainstreaming of this. I think the convention as such, as you know, is quite a lengthy document with different articles. And that's, of course, very good if children and adults familiarize with the document and why this convention was so important, and it still is. But then it's more, I think the most important thing is to become practical and to do concrete things. And that would span from what you teach, as I mentioned from my own case, in your own parenting and your own, if you have relations to children, but also education, obviously, at school, and then in discussions and at workplaces also, to remember the child's perspective in the work in general and in the debate in society.
Finally, what is your special message to the Zimbabweans as we celebrate this special convention on the children's rights?
My message to Zimbabwe would be to return to the document and pick out some, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4 articles and memorize them and try to think about what they mean and discuss them, debate.